three main sets of past papers. To be honest, among those three, in terms of level of difficulty. So Sandra asked you, how do you practice past papers before you are even done with the syllabus? Everybody keeps advising me to, but how? Why should you use past papers throughout the year? The one thing you want to keep in mind is the point is not for you to cram the questions. So I've laid out 3 ways. Oh, that's 6. So I'm firstly going to give you 3 reasons why you should use past papers throughout the year, and then after that I'm going to give you 5 ways how you are going to make use of past papers. So the first reason is you get an idea of how the questions are asked. Obviously, memos show you efficient ways in which you should answer questions. Now, the one mistake that I always used to make when it comes to exams is I always thought that, depending on how they ask a certain question, if it's not like a math subject, sometimes we always assume that we can always answer it the way we want to, as long as we feel or think our answer is correct. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, especially for theoretical subjects. There are certain ways in which you are supposed to answer specific questions. Now, your memos, basically, if you can recall, they give you point for point what you should say, how you should say it, and why it is that they want you to say it. Reason number 2, past papers show you what is important and what is trivial. The point is, when you're learning something or when you're studying, you need to know what to focus on, and you need to know what is just additional information. Past papers are obviously going to put you in a position where while you're studying, while you're learning, if you consistently go through past papers, you will know, okay, fine, this is important, this is not important. And the only way you're going to be able to make that kind of a distinction is if you go through past papers. Listen, third reason, don't hate the game, just know you're playing it and know how to play it. If you're in high school right now, you could maybe be in varsity, it doesn't matter. If you have access to past papers, trust me, this is a way of you knowing that, when it comes to, learning, school, all that shandies, it's almost like in this big game, right? Where you can fight it all you want. You can try and think that, the world is fair, but it's not. So you might as well play the game by putting yourself at an advantage. Now, if you have access to past papers, say you're in grade 12, past papers are going to put you in a position where you don't have to keep guessing how are questions answered, what is questions like this out of. Past papers put you at an advantage. Past papers sort of give you an idea that the whole game is rigged anyways. Past papers have the exact same structure. Past papers all count the exact same. If it's like a supplementary paper, a November paper, a prelim paper. If it's math, it's 2 papers. They are both out of 150. The syllabus is exactly the same. The way in which the questions are asked, it's exactly the same. Like, for example, paper 1 starts with algebra, then sequences and series, and then your financial maths, and then your functions, calculus, and then lastly you have probability. It's literally in the same format every single time. The format is literally exactly the same. So you might think to yourself, oh, this year what if they want to switch things up? No, they're not that creative, unfortunately. So just play the game and know how to play it. Now obviously let's move on to point number 2 of Sandra's question. How do you make use of past papers when you haven't done the whole syllabus? Point number 1 as to how you're going to use past papers. Only use a past paper if you also have the memo. There's no point in you trying to answer questions if you actually don't have the memo. Because if it's like a math subject, right, or any other subject really, you may think that you have answered a specific question correctly. However, if you don't have a memo to actually verify, you're always going to be thinking, wait, did I actually answer that correctly? Was it wrong? You're not going to know. When you don't have a memo, you're bound to bump into questions that you just don't know how to answer them. And then when you get into those situations, if you don't have a memo, that's going to add to things like anxiety. You're just not going to know, and you might not have anyone to ask. And the other thing is, even if you think you do have someone to ask, it doesn't mean that you should just work on questions without a memo because that person is there. No, it doesn't work that way. Just go through them dry gene. Going through past papers does not always mean that you have to be ready, or you have to have studied something, or you have to have gone through this. Nope. There are cases where you want to go through a past paper dry gene, meaning you want to sit down, time yourself, see how many marks it's going to count, and then make sure that all exam rules are in mind, like no phone, nothing. And you just want to sit down and go through the paper, depending on whatever the topics that you would have learned at the time. It puts you in a position where a lot of questions in your mind are a bit more answered now. You will know firstly, what do I know? What do I not know? How much do I need to study? What do I need to study? How often would you need to study something based on what you'd have gotten from that test where you'd have written without you knowing anything? Because some of the times You may think to yourself that you need to like do some studying or whatever, but then you actually end up wasting time by studying amiss. You study random things there. You might even not know whether or not what you're studying is important, or that specific topic, or its level of importance, because a past paper shows you, okay, this section is clearly more important than this section, because this section is like 15 marks, this is like 5. You're able to weigh which is which. When you're done writing whatever test you're going to be writing, mark properly. You see, which is why you need a memo anyway, because if you don't mark properly, it's as good as though you didn't do what you just did anyways. Third way in which you want to use past papers: use them while you're currently still working on a specific topic. So say today in class you started with calculus. The one thing you want to do is, as you're going to be working on that topic, don't just focus on the exercises that you get for homework. The exercises that you get for homework, they are okay, but then those should not be like your bread and butter, the one thing you mainly use when you're studying. Nah. One thing I actually always say is, you want to find yourself only using exercise questions when it's maybe like homework. Once you've done your homework on that day, what you want to do is find a past paper, find that section that you're currently working on, and then go through those questions. So obviously, since you also have your memo, it makes sense for you to go through those questions, because even if you struggle, you can then check on your memo, see how it's done, and then you can compare it to the level of understanding that you currently have at that point in time, so that the following day or the weeks to come or the days to come where you're still working on that topic, it's like a cycle for you. You're learning something, you're getting homework, you're doing your exercises, but then you're also checking the past papers. Okay, fine, where is this going? What are some of the questions that they're going to ask me? Because what's going to happen is, when you learn certain new things in class and you know that you have bumped into it from a past paper, your brain is able to then make the connection. Oh, wait a minute, this is important. They are teaching it to us in class. I saw it in a past paper, so I should try and make sure that I don't just chill and pretend that this is not gonna come up in the test. So when you're still learning something, if you're going through a question and you're stuck, a minute trying to figure it out is long enough. Anything above that, you just want to be arrogant now. Be humble. Just check the memo. Now, obviously, 3 main sets of past papers. To be honest, among those 3, in terms of level of difficulty, prelims are like, it's like, prelims, they whip. However, November papers, supplementary papers, they are low-key on like the same level. So if you find yourself at least going through, at least those 3 sets of papers, you're going to be putting yourself in a situation where you get to see how certain topics can be assessed at different levels. And then that allows you to sort of like be conscious of, okay, fine, if I want like a 60 or a 70 or an 80, I need to be able to at least reach this level of understanding. You actually have no reason to, let's say, like go through the same paper twice or something. Maybe if it's like a very old paper, or a paper you went through like way in the beginning of the year type of thing, I could understand you wanting to go through it again to like see if you maybe are going to get like 100 for that paper or something. But there's really no reason to go through a past paper again, because there's like a bunch of them to go through anyways. When I say at least 2 days, I mean don't only wait to go through like a past paper or past papers the day before the exam. I would say a good week before the exam or test is like a good time to actually, let's say, maybe go through a past paper dry gene or something like that. So all this being said, I mean, like for math, I have like a whole different channel where I basically literally just go through past papers, math past papers, like full past papers from start to finish without leaving anything out. So Sandra or whoever's watching this, you definitely want to make sure that you use past papers as often as you can. Ta-da! If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe.